Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or whatever the case may be, wherever you are, and welcome to the University at Buffalo's Center for Leadership and Organizational Effectiveness 52 Weeks of Leadership program, a bonus episode just for you. Don't let anybody else say it was for them. It's just for you. Sponsored, thanks so much to our friends over at Geico Careers, the folks who have taken this webinar, which actually when we were first envisioning it and working out the budget for it, it looked like it was going to be behind a paywall and, nasty stuff we didn't really want to do. Thanks to Geico for making this possible for everyone, for all of us to see and view. And let me start off by saying, hi, my name is Jim. I'm the faculty director of our Center for Leadership and Organizational Effectiveness. And let me start off by taking you a little bit behind the scenes. The whole point of the 52 Weeks of Leadership was to do a weekly webinar, so we'd end up with 52 installments over the course of 2021, to bring research and practice together. That's really the mission of the Center for Leadership and Organizational Effectiveness, to take these awesome insights from leading practitioners and merge them with what's going on in the research on organizational psychology and leadership research that most people just don't know about. We ran into a little bit of an unanticipated problem as we launched this series, though. A very small minority of the webinars that we offered to you live every Monday at noon, turns out we weren't able to share them. We weren't able to record them. We couldn't get the rights to distribute them long-term and make them accessible forever to you, because these are for you, on the internet, or forever or until the internet goes away, whichever comes first. There were just a couple, but we realized that at this rate, we weren't going to have 52 weeks of leadership. We'd have 49, 50, 48, something like that. No, we can't do that. We can't, that's ridiculous, right? And so that's why we decided that we were going to produce a few bonus episodes for you. And I drew either the short or the tall straw for this one, depending on how you look at it. Excuse me, I'm going into this mostly unrehearsed. But actually just had an idea this morning. As I was driving into work, I was thinking, we really should do one of these bonus installments on something that I've heard an awful lot about lately, that everybody's talking about, that is quite possibly, let me tell you, I don't know when it is. I don't know what month, what year it is when you're watching this, but right here in November of 2021, there are a lot of problems that modern organizations are facing. There's always the leadership crisis and the ethical crisis. These things are always going on, but right now we've got the aftermath of the pandemic and maybe the continuation of the pandemic, questions about whether people work from home or not, what does the future of work look like, supply chain issues, logistical nightmares, but maybe the one issue that's beating all of these in terms of urgency is this thing that we're calling the Great Resignation. So I wanted to take some time with you. I'm thinking it'll be about 20, 25 minutes. You know better than me because you can probably already see how long this video is. To talk to you about bringing research and practice together on this. To prepare for this, I read a lot of popular press articles on the Great Resignation. What are business leaders saying about this? And then I looked at what does the research really say about this. Not that we've got a lot of research data yet. That's part of the problem. We don't have a lot of hard data on this because this is so new and in a lot of cases so unexpected. But what do we know from the science of organizational psychology? Why people stay, why people leave. And with all of this in mind, putting all of this together in a big melting pot, what can we do about it? So hopefully by the time we're done here, we'll all be a little bit wiser on how we can go forward and challenge the Great Resignation. And let me just start with a trivia. Do you know why we call it that? Do you know where that word comes from? I hear it all the time in the news, and I read it in the business articles. Do you know where that term came from? Well, I'm happy to say it came from a business professor. Go figure, business professors. Maybe some of us actually know what we're talking about. It came from a Bloomberg Business Week interview with a professor. And check out the date here, May 10th, 2021. So this was before this started. There was a professor who predicted in this May 10th article, you can look it up by that job title, that this was going to happen. Specifically, he said that the problem was throughout the pandemic, people weren't quitting at the rate they should have been. Like you'd expect a certain number of resignations and terminations per month, but because the pandemic was so uncertain, people were putting them off and they weren't quitting. Normally I would quit my job, but gosh, it's so uncertain out there. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm a little afraid. I'm going to stay at my job just a little longer. So this professor, his name, Dr. Anthony Klotz, a professor of management, an organizational psychologist like us here at UB, over at Texas A&M. He wrote in this article that the Great Resignation is coming and that people need to be prepared for it. And here's the money quote about right here. Where there's uncertainty, people tend to stay put. So there are pent-up resignations that just didn't happen over the past year. And he said, we're getting close to the point where they're all going to resign. And he estimated it's about 3.7 million people who should have resigned during COVID, but for one reason or another, due to the uncertainty and factors like this, they haven't. So that's coming. Well, he was in the right neighborhood. Obviously, he got the prediction right because this great resignation has happened, is happening, but he actually may have understated it, as brilliant as his prediction was, because instead of seeing an extra 3-point-something million people resigning overall, we're seeing that on a monthly basis. It's gone well and beyond that. People are tired of work. They're tired of doing this. They're not going to put up with anymore. They're not going to take it. And a lot of people have speculated on the reasons for this. There's been a lot about pay and how people are just it's time you paid me more. There's been a lot about burnout and about how, well, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. I'm not going to be treated like this anymore. I've read a couple of articles about how leaders haven't taken care of people during the crisis, or how companies laid people off in kind of an unthinking, unfeeling manner, and then weren't able to get them back afterwards. Obviously, no big surprise there. Fundamental shifts in the labor market, aging workforce, people moving increasingly to the gig economy. There have been a lot of reasons why this may have happened, but in the end, in the long run, what we've got is tons and tons of people headed towards that exit door, and organizational leaders wondering, what can we do to stop this? How can I prevent my best talent from leaving? How can I play defense? And it's so hard to do because there's so many reasons, right? If you don't know why something's happening, it's hard to combat it. I'll add one of my own in. I've got a theory, and I'll tell you a secret, dear viewer. This is a theory I've passed around to some people in academic circles, and I can't really get any traction for it. I don't think any of my peers are buying it, so I probably shouldn't even tell you this. But here's my theory. I'm going to tell you anyway. My theory is this, that between everything that's happened in the pandemic, as well as the George Floyd protests, our minds are a little bit different now than they used to be, in that our norms have been shattered in a lot of ways. A lot of our pre-existing norms, just basic things like norms like, you get up, you go to work. Norms like you go to work at a place instead of from home. Norms like we send our kids to school. All of these basic, we go out and we can see each other's faces without wearing a mask. We can give someone a hug or a handshake without social distancing. I'm not saying these things are good or bad. I mean, there's great health precautions we've taken that have undoubtedly saved lives. But what I'm saying is, things have been so different for the past couple of years. We've shattered a lot of norms, and in our minds, that may get us subconsciously thinking, well, what other norms are we assuming that aren't necessarily true anymore? And maybe one of those is that I have to work here, that I have to work for this boss, that I have to work for this company, that I have to put up for this. So maybe all of us are just a little bit more open to fundamental change than we were a couple of years ago before COVID started. And maybe, hopefully, when we come out of that openness to change will lead to some self-improvement and making the world a little bit of a better place. But that's a whole other topic. We'll see. So what does the research say about why people quit? It says a little, but I think it's actually more helpful to look at what does the research say about why people stay? What can you do as an organizational boss, an organizational manager, hopefully an organizational leader, that would make people want to stay? That says a great resignation or no, forget it. This is where I belong. This feeling, this is where I belong, this is where I want to be. This is all tied up. Here's the scientific term for it, in a phrase we call organizational commitment. And basically exactly what it sounds like. How committed are you to your employer? How much do you want to stay? And there's been tons of research over the years on this, and some of the stuff I'll talk about dates back 10, 20, 30 years, but I think it's no less true today, and I don't think anything about the pandemic, the protests, the Great Resignation, none of this changes some of the fundamental facts about organizational commitment. There are three fundamental reasons why people stay with their employer. And if you're strong on just one of these, your people will stay. All three are not bad. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me go over them with you. The first one is the most basic one. It's called effective organizational commitment. That's the scientific term. Don't worry, you don't have to memorize this. There'll be no test at the end. But that's the basic one you're probably thinking of. That just means I like it here. I like this company. Like what they do. I like what they stand for. I believe in their mission. I like their leadership. I think they're going in the right direction. I like it here, so I want to stay. That's the basic one, right? But there's actually two other reasons why people might stay with your organization, completely separate from this. Now, the second one's pretty highly correlated with the first one, but it is a different thing. You could have one or the other. You don't have to have both. And it's this. It's called normative. That's the scientific term, organizational commitment. It basically works like this. My organization has done so much for me. I ought to stay. They deserve for me to stay. I owe them. boy, they paid me a lot higher salary than they had to. They had more flexibility than they had to give me. They've given me assignments that no other place would give me. They paid for a part of my education. They gave me a nice signing bonus. There's lots of reasons why this could be. But normative organizational commitment, regardless of whether or not you like the company, some of your employees are probably thinking, well, I owe it to them to stay. Usually, at least for a little while. At least for a while, to pay back my debt for the way they've treated me. And again, that could be for something huge, like they help pay for my MBA at a great school like UB. Or it could be for something minor, like, boy, my boss treats me so well, I feel like I owe it to her to stay. Or, the company's been there for me through the rough times. I can't abandon them during their rough times, something like that. You don't have to like the company to feel that way. Research shows odds are you do, like 70% overlap, but you don't necessarily have to. And if either one of those are true, you're probably going to stay with your employer. And you can think about your own employees here, the people who work with you in your organization. Which one, hopefully both maybe, do they have? Now, there is a third one. And it's a little bit different than the others. And this is one that people have trouble guessing, but it's kind of obvious in hindsight. We call it continuance commitment. And it's basically this. It says, I'm going to stay at my current employer. I'm going to stay at my organization because I can't find a job this good elsewhere. Or maybe I can't find a job at all. The benefits are so good here, I couldn't possibly leave. If I went to another company, they couldn't match my salary. I have a very specialized job. There's nowhere else I could go in my community. Maybe something like that. But continuance, you don't have to like where you're working, and you don't have to feel like you owe it to them. But continuance just says, I don't think I could get a better deal elsewhere. So it's kind of like I'm trapped here. And I didn't say all of these were positive. Obviously, that's not necessarily that's positive, but it is a reason why people stay. Interesting thing in the Great Resignation is continuance is becoming less and less of a factor because we all know that there's so many job openings everywhere. It seems like, geez, everywhere. If you want a job, it seems like there's an opening just about anywhere. And even if it's not true, ladies and gentlemen, people think it is, consciously or subconsciously, just from the impressions of the media, from the people we talk to. Everyone's talking about all the job openings everywhere. We've got it in our head that we could afford to be more flexible now than ever before, that there's more opportunity than ever before. So continuance is kind of going away in the aftermath of COVID. I say that. Hopefully this is the aftermath of COVID. Maybe you're watching this in the future, and if you know if that's true or not. Continuance is not, if you have employees that only have continuance commitment, the only reason they're staying, not because they like you, not because they feel like they owe it to you, but because they feel like they have to, because they're trapped. If you've got an employee who's only got that one kind of commitment, research finds they don't do well for you. I mean, obviously they're only here because they have to be, so they're not going to be engaged, they're not going to be enthusiastic, their job performance is less, their volunteerism is less, their promotion potential is less, they don't go above and beyond at work, things like that. You don't want people who just have that one. Generally, you want to build the other two. Now, here's something that I want to point out for you about these three things. These are why people stay. Tons of research behind this. If you're their boss, you're their leader, you really do have power over all three of those. That's the good news. You can affect all three of these, and well beyond pay. But let's dive a little deeper into it. What would make people feel like they like their employer? What would make people feel like I owe my employer? Well, one of the big things for that, and one of the obvious things for that, and one thing that shows up in the popular press an awful lot right now, is the idea of job satisfaction. You know, there's been a lot of studies on job satisfaction. And it turns out that there are 5 things that determine whether or not someone's satisfied on the job. And here they are in alphabetical order. Your coworkers determine how happy you are with your job. Your pay determines how happy you are with your job, as well as promotion opportunities. What else? Well, the quality of your supervision, how much you like your supervisor. And finally, can you guess the last one? People struggle with this a little. It's the work itself. What you do, how you do it, when you do it, why you do it, where you do it. All of these things play in to whether or not you're satisfied in your job. Now, here's a little quiz question for you, ladies and gentlemen, and you can pause the video while you think about this. Look at those 5. Which do you think is the most important to most people? And obviously, there's lots of individual differences here, but if we did a survey to, and we have, tens of thousands of U.S. adults, and we said, rank these, 1 to 5, what's the most important to your job satisfaction? What do you think most people would say? Well, it turns out the results are generally pretty consistent, not everybody, but by far the number one answer that comes up the most often is pay, followed by the closely associated promotion opportunities, then the quality of supervisors, coworkers, and in last place, the work itself. And let me ask you a follow-up question. Do you believe that? I mean, you just had a business professor on tape, so hopefully he's not lying, because you can always come back and call him on and say that there's been research that says this is pretty much the order that most people say. But do you think that's true? Do you think we know what we want? Where is he going with this? What do I mean by this? Well, this says that really the only things that are really important if you want people to be satisfied and thus hold on to them through organizational commitment is you need to pay them more, give them more promotions, which is a lot of what I'm reading in the popular press. And that certainly wouldn't be a bad idea if your organization has the financial resources to afford that you're able to do that. This is what people think they want out of a job. In general. However, in the words of the U.S. humorist Sloane Crossley, sometimes we don't know what we want until we don't get it. Someone just told me right before I walked in here, if you're more of a science fiction fan than that of American humorist Mr. Spock, once said sometimes the wanting is more pleasing than the having. And the question I'm trying to ask you is, this is what we think we want. Is this what we actually want? Because there have been studies that have dug in deeper and didn't directly ask people what's important to their job satisfaction, but tried to get at it a little more indirectly, watching what they do, how they respond to certain phenomena, asking questions in roundabout ways so it's not clear what we're getting at, changing one of these 5 and seeing how much overall job satisfaction, turnover, commitment, all those things changed. And when they do it that way, when they don't ask people directly what's the most important for them, the order changes completely. As it turns out, the most important thing, people don't realize it, but the most important thing for people's job satisfaction is actually what was at the bottom of that list. It's the work itself. And again, this encompasses a whole bunch of things. It encompasses what you do. So are you doing what you were trained to do? Are you doing what you like to do? Are you doing things that provide you with meaning? Are you doing them with some autonomy, or are you being micromanaged? Do you get to do them the way you want to do it, how you want to do it? Do you get to do it when you want to do it? Do you get to do it where you want to do it? The flexibility thing. This is actually the most important factor for people's job satisfaction. Second on the list is supervisors. So people are more satisfied. This is the second most important thing for their overall satisfaction. Them saying if they've got a good relationship with their manager, if they've got a good relationship with their boss, if they trust them, if they can talk to them, if they believe they're looking out for their best interests. Number 3 on the list is the quality of your coworkers. Are these people who are on the same page as you? Are these people who would support you? Are these people who would help you? Are these people who you enjoy interacting with? And then check it out. At the bottom of the list, contrary to what we think, promotion opportunity and pay. So what's the moral of the story here? Research shows that most people think pay is the most important. You ask most people what they want, what's the most important thing, they will say pay. They are wrong. It's a bias we all have. Our mind is playing tricks on us. It's the first thing that comes to mind. And this is based around the whole idea that for years, for decades, we talked about work as just a way to make a living, as a way to make money. That's the most important thing. We do it because we have to, not because we want to. We don't talk a lot about the degree to which work can provide us with joy, to which it can provide us with meaning. And some of you are thinking, wow, that's idealistic. Joy can provide you with with meaning and joy. Our work can, you know what I'm getting at. Yeah, it could. Why not? Why not? Why couldn't we get to a place where we believe that our work is making a positive difference and that I'm enjoying what we do? Is there any rule that says it can't be that way? So we think a lot about pay when in reality what people really want more than anything is to be able to do work they enjoy, work they love, and to be able to do it when and where they want to. And again, this gets back to all these conversations about work flexibility post-COVID. A lot of this is, do people have autonomy? Are people doing things they really enjoy and find meaningful? But one of the biggest aspects of this, and this is what the practical press does get right that we're seeing a lot, is the idea that we're just burned out. And this is a symptom, an inadvertent consequence of lean management methods that we've been leaning on for decades. And I'm not slamming these because there's something to be said for efficiencies, and there's certainly something to be said for not hiring more people for a job than you need for it to be done. In fact, in my field, in organizational psychology, there's a lot of research that says that the ideal team size is just barely enough to get the job done, because if you have any more than that, then you've got people who are slacking off. You want people to feel a little sense of urgency. So lean is a good thing. However, lean advocates in my audience, would you believe me if I said, research shows a lot of times managers, organizations, maybe we overdo it a little bit with the lean. You know, if we can be a little more efficient, maybe we could be a lot more efficient. Maybe we could make this team even smaller. You know, someone just retired, maybe we could get by without that person if we just had someone else do the job. Does that ever happen at your organization? Does that sound familiar to you? It happens everywhere, right? It happens everywhere. We're always trying to find greater efficiencies to make up in other areas when we have to have expenses increased or, you know, revenues decreased due to unforeseen matters. You know, there's a whole bunch of research on VUCA situations, whole other thing, but you see what I'm getting at. Organizations, maybe, just maybe, we've tilted the pendulum a little bit too far towards efficiency and forgetting about the overall effectiveness and the good of our employees, and this leads to burnout. My own research shows this, that when employees feel like they're being set up for failure, like they don't have enough resources, and resources include time, when they feel like they've got too many duties to do in a day and there's just no way I can get through all of this, we burn out. We become emotionally exhausted. What happens when we become emotionally exhausted, we start thinking to ourselves, well, is the grass greener over there? Could I go somewhere else? Maybe another company wouldn't treat me so poorly. Maybe they would ask less of me. Maybe I could have a better work-life balance. The problem is, we human beings, you, me, all of us, here's another psychological bias for you. We've all kind of got a herd mentality. We're a lot like sheep, in that if we see someone else leaving, or if we read about a lot of people leaving, for instance, hypothetical situation, if we hear about this great resignation that everybody seems to be leaving their jobs for greener pastures to find other things that they enjoy more or don't burn them out as much, you know, we think, well, I could do that. We don't always think it through rationally. I could do that. And if someone else leaves, you know, a trusted coworker leaves an organization, or worse, if a manager leaves, if a manager departs from their position, that manager really had the same priorities as me, I believed in him, then you start thinking, is this really the right place for me? Maybe I should follow him. Maybe I should go with her. So this is a problem, because with all the news around us of the Great Resignation, this primes our mind to think, hey, maybe I could go too. So, you know, that's what I've talked for 22 minutes now about what's behind the Great Resignations, why people leave, why people stay. What can we do about it? Well, I went through the organizational psychology research, and I keep coming up with the same thing. There's one factor that comes up more than anything that will keep your employees there. One factor that combats a lot of these forces, one factor that maximizes most of the important things around job satisfaction, that maximizes organizational commitment. It's one word, and it starts with a T. I'm going to foreshadow a little, see if you can guess it. One word starts with a T. And then interestingly, I said I was reading some research or some popular press articles on this morning, and I read one popular press article that was actually covering research, but from a field outside of mine. It was on neuroscience. And what does neuroscience have to say about the Great Resignation? And they tied it all back. What can organizations do about this? What can leaders do about this? To one word that starts with a T. So, wow, lots of different fields are getting to the same place. Have you guessed what this word is yet? Let me share it with you. The word is trust. And again, I know that sounds idealistic and intangible. Whoa, no, we need raises, we need flexibility. Well, maybe you do. Maybe you do. But there's something almost magical. There's a truly staggering power that trust in your manager has in the workplace. To the point that, you know, we've remarked on this in my field, that it seems to be very strongly positively connected to everything that's good. Whether that be your commitment, whether that be your performance, whether that be your creativity, whether that be your engagement, whatever outcome you want. It's strongly positively related to everything that's good, and it's strongly negatively related to everything that's bad. It's negatively related to turnover. It's negatively related to counterproductive work behaviors or sabotage or loafing on the job or, you know, taking too long lunch breaks. All this, it's no matter what we study in my field, it seems like trust predicts it one way or the other based on whether or not it's good or bad. And this article I read this morning was saying neuroscience says the same thing too. That if you really want to hold on to your employees, the most important thing you can do with them is not necessarily to give them a raise, although that might be needed. And it's not necessarily to give them more flexibility, although that might be needed too. But it is to build trust with them. Do they trust you? And here's the definition of trust, if you're not sure on this. Here is the scientific definition of trust. Are they willing to leave themselves vulnerable to your actions? That's the definition of trust. Think about people you trust. Are you willing to leave yourself vulnerable to them when they can do something and you don't know what they're going to do, you don't get to see what they do, you don't have any control over what they're going to do, are you willing to leave yourself vulnerable to them? That is what trust is. Do you think your employees feel that way about you? Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but I guarantee you it could be stronger, whether the answer is yes or no. So this is perhaps the most important thing you can do during the Great Resignation. Yes, consider, are they underpaid? Yes, consider if they're overworked. Yes, consider, do they need more flexibility? Does it make sense for them to work from home? What are the latest health guidelines? All of this is important. But one thing that we're overlooking a lot, and that really ties into all of this, is trust. And if you're treating them fairly in terms of all of these things, you're going to build trust with them. One of the best ways to do this is just to have conversations with them, regular. Not just, how are things going at work today? Good, back to work, okay, fine, but taking it to a slightly deeper level. In the servant leadership research, which we've talked about a bit in the 52 weeks, we've talked a lot about the power of building personal relationships, not inappropriate, but a question that I like to ask a lot when I'm consulting or doing research with organizations. I ask employees, would you feel comfortable going to your manager if you had a personal problem? I keep talking about psychological biases because these are fascinating to me. One bias that leaders are really bad at. We assume we know what people are thinking. We assume we know how people are feeling. We assume we know what their challenges are and what they want. When we don't. Basically, we assume that because we know what the answers to those questions are for ourselves, but they're not necessarily for our coworkers and for our employees. So let me give you something tangible. Go back to work. Talk to your employees, talk to your followers, talk to the people who report to you, talk to your people who depend on you, and you can build trust really well with open-ended questions. And here's two that you could start out with that are very powerful. Number one, what aren't you getting out of work that you're looking for? Oh, that gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? Because that could get you to the money, to the flexibility, to the coworkers, to the work itself, to the autonomy. There's so much you can get at there. Note that this question does not read, are you getting everything out of work that you're looking for? Because then they're going to say, oh, yes, boss, absolutely, I'm fine. Am I in trouble? No, good, yeah, I'm fine, go away, right? You don't want that. You want them to be honest with you. So you go in assuming there's something you're not getting out of work. And if they answer this, oh, there's nothing, I'm getting everything I'm looking for, they're probably just saying that to make you happy because they're not sure where you're coming at it from. And that actually in and of itself, that's indicative of a little bit of a lack of trust too. So push them. Say, look, I know we're not perfect. I know I'm not perfect. There must be something. What aren't you getting out of work that you're looking for? And then you can also ask them, what are the biggest issues you see with your career here? Again, note, it's not closed-ended. It's not, hey, do you have any issues with your career here? Hey, is everything going okay in terms of your career? Hey, are you getting all the career development you need? Are you think, because it's so easy for them to say, yeah, I've got everything I need. Yes, no, you go in and you assume, you tell them. And this goes back to the very first 52 weeks of leadership we did, back with Eisenhower's definition, where he would always assume that his soldiers had an idea he didn't. You go in assuming, indicating to them, I know that we are doing something wrong, that I'm doing something wrong as a leader, that the company is doing something wrong as an employer. Help us see it. What are you missing? What's the biggest issues you see with your career development here? If they absolutely refuse to answer these questions, well, then you've got a major trust issue. But if you've taken time to build personal relationships with them, to be honest and fair with them, to really listen to what they have to say and do your best to act on it, even if it turns out in the end it's impossible, even if it turns out it's a bad idea, but they see that you at least considered it, you tried it on for size. As long as you've got that, you'll get something out of this. And you're telling your employees, hey, I'm listening to you. I want to be better. If there's something that's nagging you in the back of your head, you're thinking of the Great Resignation and you're thinking, is this the right time for me to seek greener pastures? You're telling them, hey, as your boss, let me hear what it is. Let me hear what we could do better. And you won't always hear something you can do something about, but hopefully you've got a strong enough relationship with it where you can really get a pulse on what your employees are looking for. And that'll better equip you to keep them. Build that trust. What aren't you getting out of work that you're looking for? Not is there anything. I almost said that just now because that's our impulse to make a simple close-ended question. No, keep it open-ended. And what are the biggest issues you see with your career and your career development here? Phrase it in such a way where you're kind of forcing them to tell you what's wrong and where you could do better. So overall, I'm afraid there are no easy answers to the Great Resignation. There's a lot of factors going into this, and there hasn't been enough data collected yet to fully understand it. But what we've got so far, everything points that, yeah, pay could be important, but we think burnout might be a bigger factor. And we think the best way to combat this is to focus on this issue of trust. Remember, job satisfaction is based primarily on how much they enjoy the work itself, the quality of their supervisor, the quality of their coworkers. You control all of those, even the coworkers, because you hire them, you build the culture, you set that culture, you maintain the culture. All of this comes back to you. You can affect this. You can affect the most important things to your employees' job satisfaction. And if you can do that, you can control their organizational commitment. If you can do that, you can control how long they'll be with your organization. Well, there'll be more to come on this topic, I'm sure. There's still so many questions we don't have answered, but it's kind of neat to me that all of the research, even from different fields, it's all kind of pointing in the same direction. Trust is the way to go. Have those personal conversations with your employees. Find out what's going on in their heads. Don't assume that they think the same things you do. Well, I hope this has been helpful to you. We'll see you next time on the next episode of the 52 Weeks of Leadership.